Welcome back to the College Football Pick'em Pod. We got picks for Week 10, and we have the college football ranking out too, the playoff ranking. So that will be fun to get into. Miami looked great this week, so we should be happy about that. So Phil, what do you have for us before we get into
Oh
everything?
man, you got to take shots, huh? All right. Well, there's a bit of great news this week out of Caneswear. Their classic starter jackets, you know and love, are back. Brand new shipment is in, and a whole bunch are in stock: green, orange, white, black. The most popular seems to be the green. Just like last time, these won't last long. They're selling like hotcakes. So if you haven't already, get your starter jacket and all your Hurricanes gear at Caneswear on University Drive in the Arrowhead Shopping Center in Davie, or at the online store at caneswear.com. Well, you had to bring up how Miami looked last week against Boston College. It was
I think
bad.
you need a jacket that doesn't say Miami football. Maybe it's just Miami in general, and it's basketball season now, as far as I'm concerned.
I can't wait, man. That's my main shtick over there at Canes Insight, and I'm excited for basketball season to get going. I'm excited to
How are
talk
we
about.
looking?
We're looking okay. Not much has changed. I mean, we lose Bruce Brown, but Bruce Brown didn't play a lot of last season anyway. We lose Lonnie Walker, which is obviously a big loss, but we get a lot of guys back. Cameron McGusty should be pretty good for us. And, we're predicted to be 10th in the ACC in the ACC preseason poll, but like we're getting top 25 votes. So I don't know, man. I bet you we're another 6 or 7 seed going into that tournament. Hopefully this year we don't play Loyola Chicago.
It's good that we're consistently making the tournament.
Exactly. This is we've done it 3 years in a row for the first time in school history. And, now we're going to be coming up into the fourth time. And, for the first year in, I guess 3 years, Miami's not in the college football playoff ranking. So, basketball is more consistent than football. That's for sure. So
We still got to lock up a bowl game.
Yeah, we got to win one more. Is that going to happen? This week we get Duke. I have nothing on that game, so
Yeah, well, we'll get
when we get there. But
that's a tough one. All right,
brutal.
What should we kick it off with? I think we should kick it off with this NIU at Akron. I think it's Thursday night. It might be Friday.
It's Thursday.
Okay, it's Thursday. The over/under is set at 37 points, and I get why, but I still have to take the over here just on principle. You have a college football game that's under 40 points. And it's not like these teams, NIU doesn't really put up a lot of points. They have a stingy defense, but Akron is capable and they're the home team. And the game could be 21-17 and it goes over, which is like 21-17 is always usually an underscore. So an underscore. Look at that.
Hey, look at you.
So I especially because this game's on Thursday too, and you want to have some weeknight action. This is one I like just because 37 points is low.
Yeah, that's crazy. This is mainly coming off of the NIU beating BYU 7-6 last week. That's probably
exactly.
why
I think it's a lot of influence off of one low scoring game.
Yeah, and Akron versus Central Michigan was 17-10. So I get it. I get why this is low, but I also agree with you. I'm not betting it, but if you're looking to do an over under on that night, you got to do that one because you have Ohio, Western Michigan, the over unders at 65. I don't know. That's close. And then you have UCF Temple, the over unders at 61. I like to think that one's going over, but I think that if you can have a number at 37, even if that was a pro over under, I'm probably taking the over because that's just such a low number. 37. That's really low.
Yeah, it's I gotta get on that.
Yeah. And so how much do you have on that one?
15.
And so before we jump out of last week UCF was off. We were both right on this the Clemson FSU game, which I just wanted to bring that up real quick because we were both right on it and FSU lost by 49 points or something like that. So anytime you can talk about that, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. We don't have to talk too much about last week, but that has to be mentioned. And so now UCF is back this week and they play Thursday night and the first college football playoff ranking came out. And of course, UCF is ranked 12th behind 2-loss Florida and a slew of 1-loss teams. There's only 3 undefeated teams ahead of them. And yet they're 12th in the nation. And this is one of those where it's just so frustrating because as you sit down and you look at this, and look, I don't think that UCF is one of the 4 best teams in college football. But at the same time, if you're never going to give them a chance to play in the playoff, then these teams that are in the AAC and in the other things, they should make their own national championship and just go play somewhere else, because it's a waste of time to be playing in somebody else's world right now. I mean, this is just it's stupid to start them at 12 when they're undefeated. And I know that the last game they played was against Memphis, but look, this week they're coming out. They're 11-point favorites against Temple.
Ooh, I see them at 10.5.
10.5. I'm sorry, 10.5. You're right. It was 11 this morning. It's down to 10.5, which is perfect for me. I got UCF minus 10.5. I got 15 on it because UCF sees this ranking and they know what happened last year. They went undefeated. They never got the credit. They won their bowl game. They still never got the credit. Yeah, they get to hang the banner, but they never had a chance to play in the playoff. And this game is actually for, I believe it's the East. Is it the East in the AAC? I'm not really sure. I have to look that up. But both of these teams are undefeated in the AAC, and they are on the same side of the bracket. And this is a huge, huge game. Whoever wins this is going to represent that side in the AAC championship game. And it's going to be UCF. This is a home game for UCF. And as I'm looking at this, I just see a team that is going to be pissed off that, once again, nobody cares that they've won every single game that they've played.
Yeah, and that Memphis game, that's a good win. I mean, they were down early on the road, a very capable Memphis team. They come back and get a huge win. And look, they're 5-2 against the spread this season. They never get credit. We've been a big fan of UCF all season. And, if you've taken them all season, you're 5-2. That's a great betting record. So I don't see any reason to hop off this now, especially because it's under 2 touchdowns. And they're at home, and the college football ranking, and they want to make a statement after Memphis. There's a lot of things pointing to UCF really wanting to kind of outdo themselves, and I think it's a good spot. I'm on this too, and I got $20 on it.
Yeah, and I think that this is just a good one. And I look at somebody like Houston, right, who's also in the AAC. And right now, I think they're the only other AAC team ranked in the AP poll because, we've seen a lot of teams. South Florida was in there, South Florida loses. Cincinnati was in there, Cincinnati loses. All these teams that keep getting ranked just because we're running out of teams because teams like Miami kept losing. And so in the AP poll, Houston is ranked 17, right? 17 in the AP poll. It's 7-1. You know where they're ranked in the CFP? Nowhere. They're not ranked at all. And that's the only other team that even has a chance. The AAC just gets no respect, gets no credit. And look, Houston's played some, they've played some pretty crazy games. I forget who their only loss is to, but I just think that this is something where, you look at the AAC and it's not that bad of a conference. Honestly, it might be close to being as good as the ACC right now because the ACC is dreadful. And yeah, Houston's only loss was at Texas Tech. They lost 63-49 in a crazy shootout. So I don't know. I think that Houston deserves a little bit more credit than not even being ranked in this college football playoff ranking, but they're not ranked, and that's just how it is. And so, UCF's not going to really get many chances to prove themselves, which is annoying, but I like them here. I think they're going to blow Temple out of the water. And but I will say for the Temple Owls, it's pretty crazy how much they've changed at the beginning of the season. They lost to Villanova and Buffalo to start off, and now they're 5-3 and only a 10.5-point dog against UCF.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I mean, UCF has looked a little shaky of late, so maybe we shouldn't be so confident in this because Temple has kind of gotten things together. But again, this means so much to UCF, and it's a big game for Temple too, but there's just not as much at stake for the Owls. I know we like to kind of go in order, but since we're at the AAC, let's talk about Houston at SMU. I don't know if you have anything on this game, but I'm with you in that this ranking comes out and Houston is not there. Houston is a 14-point favorite, which I really like. It's under the 14.5, and they're at SMU. And I see this just as a blowout. I see this kind of like the FSU Clemson's game, looking at it in a very similar way, where I think Houston is so much better, and Houston's a team that puts up points on teams that they are better than. It's kind of what UCF does also. So I look for Houston to make a statement against a very weak SMU team. And yeah, they lost to Texas Tech, but Texas Tech is a very good football team. So I really like this one. I got $20 on it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised this one's as low as it is. I don't have anything on it, but I am surprised. I think it's mainly because they played Cincinnati in overtime. They played tight against Tulane at Tulane, and they won it. So I think that's why SMU is one of those teams. They're like a Kansas State, and I always say this. I feel like they just get so much more respect than they actually deserve. But right now, Houston is clicking on all cylinders. I like this bet. I don't have anything on it, but I think this is a good idea because if you look at Houston's last 5 games, they beat Texas Southern, who cares, 70-14, Tulsa 41-26, East Carolina 42-20. At Navy, they won 49-36. Then they beat UCF, who was undefeated, ranked 21 in the country, 57-36. You're right. They put up points, and the rule is always the better team is going to get a wider gap as the game goes on. And I agree. I think that Houston will start putting up some serious. Yeah,
they throw a ball a ton, so they're gonna. Yeah. I mean, it should be a high-scoring game. So yeah, I feel good about that. I like my AAC CFP grudge side of things.
Saying AAC is so hard to do. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
Have you seen their ads that are like Power 6 conference? They're like trying to make that a thing. I think it's good. I'm all for it. Like, go for it.
I am too. I agree, because you know what? If it's just going to be a Power 5 thing, then what's the point of having the other conferences? Like, there's no reason to have them. Why? So people can just beat them, and if they don't beat them, it doesn't hurt them, and it just doesn't matter. Like, I agree with them. It should be Power 6. Let's do it. Let's go. They're not that bad. They're really not.
They're not.
So I agree with you. I like these ads. I think it's funny. And like, if Miami's going to suck, let's root for the little guy at least, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like it. So I got those both. I got 20 on both those teams.
Yeah, and so I have 20 pretty much on everything else. I have two more bets that don't have 20, but my next one, I got Pitt plus 7.5 actually going to Virginia. Virginia ranked 25 in the nation right now. They've been hot. That Miami loss, it's a frustrating one because we know we're a better football team than Virginia. We know we should have beaten them. Well, but that's the thing. We lost that game by 3 points in Virginia and had a chance at the end to get the ball back with like 2 minutes left, and everything that went wrong. And you look at this, and we were still that close, and we played terrible football. Like, we played terrible football. Virginia's offense isn't very good. And the one thing that I'm noticing about this Pittsburgh team, Pittsburgh's not a bad football team. Pittsburgh knocked off Syracuse, who's now ranked in the country. Pittsburgh, just last week, they knocked off Duke 54-45. They lost at Notre Dame by just 5 points. The big loss that hurts Pitt is that they lost to UNC. And I know that Virginia has been hot. They beat Miami 16-13. They beat Duke 28-14. They beat UNC 31-21. I honestly would not be surprised if Pitt pulls this off, though. Virginia's due for a letdown game. Virginia is really overachieving on this season right now. This game also is for first place in the Coastal Division. That's crazy. I believe that if Pitt wins it, they will be tied for first at worst, and they'd be tied with Virginia Tech if Virginia Tech also wins. If Virginia wins, they're in first place by themselves. So this is a really big game, and who would have thought Pittsburgh at Virginia would be the biggest game of Week 10 in the ACC?
It's bananas. I mean, Clemson has just a cakewalk to the college football playoff. I mean, they're not gonna. If they were gonna trip up, they would have lost to Syracuse.
Absolutely,
and they got through it. And they're undefeated, and they'll be in the playoff. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's no way they're not losing anybody from that Coastal. They're just not. It's just not that good of a conference. Honestly, the ACC is. They might be the 6th best conference in football right now. They really might. The Sun Belt might give them a run for their money at this point. But speaking of the ACC, while we're talking about Clemson's cakewalk, I got Clemson minus 39 this week, and I know that's insane.
Not. I do. I actually considered it. Like, dude, I thought about it.
I have to. Louisville is so bad at football. They're so bad. Dude, they lost to Wake last week, 56-35. They got destroyed. And the week before, Wake Forest lost by 21 to Florida State. And we just saw what Clemson did to Florida State. So I know that you can't keep going to the transitive property, but this is a game that I like to end 56-0. I really do. Remember when Golden finally got fired from the Hurricanes? That's how I feel that this game is going to go. I feel like this is going to be an absolute joke. Right now, Louisville is not a Power 5 football team. They're not an ACC school right now. I don't know what they are. They are going through some stuff. Bobby Petrino made the comment at the beginning of the year that he thinks his team could beat Alabama. I hope he doesn't actually believe that his team can beat Clemson right now. And I know you're supposed to believe in your team, but come on. Dude, I got a minus 39. I know it's a ridiculously high number, and normally I wouldn't take this number, but Clemson's that good. Clemson's that good, and Louisville's that bad. Louisville's the worst team.
I know.
Louisville's gotten blown out by Georgia Tech. They've gotten blown out by Wake Forest. They've gotten blown out by who else did they get blown up? Did they lose to Florida State? Right? No, they barely lost to Florida State. But that was like the only good game they've played all season. They're going to get destroyed this week.
Oh, man. I want to hop on it with you, but yeah, but we know I can't. I'm not allowed to do that anymore because anytime I do that, it loses.
We lose.
I considered it. It would be it'd be a fun bet too, a fun game to watch. I don't know if I'll have time to watch this full game, but if I was watching this game and like dedicated to it, I would definitely put money on that. That'd be a fun bet.
Yeah, I agree. It's so silly, and it's 39 points with ACC opponents, and I'm still like, nope, there's no doubt. Like I'm confident. I really am. I got 20 on it. I'm ready. I'm ready to watch this.
All right.
Mess.
Cool. Well, let's stick with the ACC. I got Syracuse at Wake Forest. This is a noon game on Saturday. I am taking the under at 75.5 points. Both of these teams put up a lot of points, so I get why it is set so high. But I just think Syracuse is a much better team than Wake Forest. Like, Wake Forest beats Louisville last week, but we know how bad Louisville is. That doesn't count for me. Louisville is probably as bad as Rutgers right now. Like, Rutgers might be favored. That's what I want to see. I want to see Rutgers versus Louisville.
Dude, it's crazy.
Can we make that happen?
Yeah, exactly. Like, get somebody on the phone. Let's get one more bowl game. You can host it in my backyard, and we'll do that. Let's get that game going because that would be the most entertaining football game. They probably just have to play two-hand touch. Like, I don't even know because neither team can tackle. So I don't know. Louisville's really bad. And also, I just want to say this real quick. You know who Louisville's last 4 games are against? Louisville's last 4 games this season: at Clemson, at Syracuse, versus NC State, versus Kentucky. Those are the last 4 games, all ranked in the top 25.
Oh man,
I'm just gonna.
This is gonna be fun.
Gonna be fun. Welcome to 2-10 Louisville. But anyway, go ahead. Continue with the series.
Yeah.
Continue with series.
I just think 75.5 points is a lot, and I do see Q's scoring, but I don't see Wake Forest like keeping up with Syracuse. I think there's going to be a gap between them, and this is one of those numbers where at 75 you're relying on both teams to score. I don't think Q's is putting up 50 or 60 points. I'm looking at like a 42-21 final here. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah. Q's is going to win by around 20 points. That's
I
fine.
totally agree with you.
So yeah, I got 15 on this.
You got 15 on it. Yeah, I actually have Q's -6. I think this is a really low number for a Wake Forest team that's really bad. And I was reading something today where somebody said, hey, looks like Wake Forest's offense is waking up because they put up 56 on Louisville. You and me could go play catch over Louisville's defense and put up 56 points. It's such a joke right now that I don't believe at all that Wake Forest can do anything. I'm not convinced at all. And I know that this number right now, the Syracuse number right now is high because that NC State game was 51-41, which was a game that I had said, man, this is going over last week. That was a good one I had. And probably my second best bet of the week behind Boise Air Force, which hit the over right after half. It was at 56 points at half. I needed 58. But Syracuse -6, man. Wake Forest is a bad team. I mean, Wake Forest is 4-4. They're 1-3 in conference. Only win over Louisville. Syracuse now ranked 19 in the college football playoff. You have Wake Forest. They lost 38-17 to FSU. They lost 63-3 to Clemson. They lost 56-27 to Notre Dame. They're not a good football team. Their wins are over Tulane and Towson and Louisville and Rice. Those are 4 of the worst teams in college football. So I love this -6. $20 on it. I think this one is a great number. It's under a touchdown. I don't see field goals in this game. So let's go.
Yeah. That's a good one. I just feel more comfortable with it not going over 75.5. But we're both on the same page with our thinking.
Yeah, exactly. What's the next game you have? I have Memphis. I
have I think I have 3 unders all at noon. So that was my first one. And then I have Air Force at Army. It's at 43, which is low, but I'm taking the under just because Army unders are really good. And then they have this rivalry. They both run the ball a ton. 4 of the last 5 of these games have gone under when it's Air Force versus Army. and I'm hoping it's getting colder. Hopefully, getting some weather this weekend. That might prevent points from getting up on the board. So I just when I was looking at these bets, I just thought, man, I'm really feeling kind of the underbug. So besides besides the one over of NIU at Akron at 37, which is just bananas. But I just think this is a game where the clock is just constantly running. So you might get 14 points in the first half, 17 points maybe.
I hear that. I actually don't have any unders this week, but I only have one over, and the reason is I didn't like any of the overs. Like how you're taking the unders. I didn't love any of the unders, but I didn't like any of the overs either. It wasn't. I was getting a bad vibe from these. There's only one over I have, but
yeah, I only have $10 on this. This is kind of a principal bet. It's just the armed forces tend to go under when they play each other. It's just
that makes sense.
Trend.
That makes sense. And the game I have Memphis against East Carolina. Memphis is a 13-point road favorite, and I like it. I really do. The last game we saw for Memphis is them get destroyed by Missouri, which is a letdown game after you play your heart out against UCF and still manage to lose. People are giving so much credit to Missouri for how much they blew out Memphis, and UCF only could beat them by 1, and that's why UCF's not good. It's a letdown game after you play your biggest conference rival. East Carolina is a bad football team. They've lost 49-6 to Temple. They barely beat Old Dominion. They lost to USF. They killed UNC, but that was at the beginning of the year when UNC was who they are. They lost to North Carolina A&T. They've been losing games by 20.
You talking bad about my Tar Heels over here?
Sorry, man. Yeah, that's right. You're wearing the Tar Heel shirt again. But I look at this and I see a Memphis team that had a bye week. They have an extra week to prepare for this game. The last game they played was a blowout after a really heartbreaker. This is one where I think they right the ship. They're going to run down the throat of East Carolina. And I got 20 on it, Memphis -13.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, Memphis needs to kind of bounce back. They've had a rough couple of weeks. So that all makes sense. Yeah. All right. I don't have really anything else on that game. Do you mind if I move to my third noon under?
Go ahead, man. I'm loving these unders. Go for it.
I think this is at noon. Nebraska is going to Ohio State.
I saw this number. This is crazy.
72.5 right now. And I think a lot of it comes from, Ohio State, they put up a ton of points. They're coming off their embarrassing loss to Purdue. They're going to want to make a statement. I get all that. But OSU, they had problems before running into Purdue. That wasn't out of nowhere. They struggled against Penn State for a whole half. They only put up 30 points against Minnesota the week before that Purdue game. It was 30-14 was the final. And it's not like they're putting up 50 to 60 points like they were at the beginning of the season. So I look for this score to be 45-17. And this is another one of those, I don't think Nebraska is going to score all that many points. So even if Ohio State gets into the 50s, which, like I said, I don't see that happening. They have issues on offense. I don't see Nebraska scoring that much because OSU also has a pretty good defense, and their defense gave up 44 points to Purdue. And I know a lot of those were on turnovers, and it wasn't necessarily the defense's fault, but they're going to want to come out and shut down Nebraska the best they can as well. Yeah. So it's a bounce back game for the whole team. So yeah, even if it's 49-20, I mean, that gets you 49-21, that gets you to 70. You're still hitting the under. So I feel pretty good taking the under 72.5. I got 15 on it.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. I didn't bet it, but Nebraska is the one I don't trust to score the points. Nebraska hasn't had a good year. Why are all of a sudden they going to be able to put up a bunch of points on Ohio State? Like you said, it's a bounce back in all facets of this game. You're not just going to bounce back on offense. You're going to try to bounce back everywhere. So I agree with you. I like that.
Cool. Yeah, so those are my 3 noon unders. I usually don't take that many unders, but they kind of jumped out at me.
Do you have any other noon games, or should we go on to a 12? Oh wait, no, this is 12:30 Pacific time. Dang, I was going to say a 12:30 game, but do you have any other noon games, or do you want to jump to the next slate here?
I don't think I have any more noon games. I think that's it for me.
So the next game I have is Georgia at Kentucky, and Kentucky is ranked 9th in the country, which is crazy because Kentucky, it's Kentucky. I mean, it's Kentucky football. It's not what we're used to seeing. We're not used to them being 9 in the country. They got so lucky last week against Missouri. That was a loss. That was a terrible call at the end of the game. They beat Vandy by 7. They lost to A&M by 6, and A&M this week gets destroyed by Mississippi State. We were both wrong on that. They've beaten South Carolina, Mississippi State, Murray State. They beat Florida early in the year. Kentucky's had a really good season.
You're just not buying Kentucky.
Yeah, to more or less, the whole moral of this is, now welcome to the big leagues. The college football playoff ranking came out. Georgia sees themselves right on the bubble, number 6. They're right there. They're so close to being in that top 4 playoff, even with a loss. They are not slipping up at Kentucky. After what I watched last week, I watched that whole Kentucky game. They looked bad. And if Georgia can stop Snell, goodbye. That's it for Kentucky. They're done. They have nothing else. I love Georgia -9 here. I think Georgia, this is very much like when I think Georgia played, was it South Carolina or was it Mississippi State at the beginning of the year? Whichever one it was, whoever they played, they were a road favorite by only like 6.5 points. I'm sitting there.
Yeah, that was the South Carolina game. Yeah.
That was the South Carolina game. It's like, what are you talking about? That's how I feel about this one. I know that this is a top 10 matchup. This isn't actually a top 10 matchup. You have one team who's a playoff contender, and you have one team who's overachieved. And good for Kentucky, good for Benny Snell. That's really great for all of them. They are going to get blown out at home this week.
Yeah, I like where your head's at. I don't think Kentucky's as good as they are, but Georgia, like when they lost to LSU, that wasn't like a fluky loss. Like LSU handled them. And then LSU loses to Florida. It's we're getting to the point where it's hard to read on these teams. What's that?
Georgia destroyed Florida last week.
I know. So I like where you're at just because I have believed for the most part of this season that Georgia is one of those like top 5 teams. Like there are very few top teams right now. Georgia is likely one of them. This would be a huge win in solidifying that for me.
Yeah, and if Kentucky pulls this off, I was completely wrong. I completely
and that's
misread
the thing.
everything.
Kentucky still looks really good. So I mean, they're
just not dynamic.
They only have one loss, Kentucky. I mean, and they've played a really tough schedule.
They have. They're just not that dynamic. That's what it comes down to more for me. They don't have enough weapons to compete with Georgia, to beat the Georgia defense. And man, they've won their last 2 games. They should have probably lost both. They lost to A&M before that. They're definitely more on the coming back down to earth type thing, more like NC State, who I watched, and I almost picked them this week, but I couldn't do it because they're just falling back down to earth. And Kentucky will get to hang around a little bit because their schedule was harder and because they're in the SEC. NC State, everybody will have already forgotten about this week. But I don't know, man. I think they go down this week. I think they drop pretty far down in the rankings. I think this is going to be like a kind of, what do you call it? One of those games that shows you for who you really are. And, good for Kentucky. I mean, that's crazy. They're ranked in the top 10. It's the same thing as Miami last year when they went to play Clemson. Or, it's like, this is going to be ugly. Like, you knew it was going to be ugly, and it was ugly. And that's kind of how I feel right now. These aren't 2 top 10 teams.
Yeah, you're just putting it off. You're faking it until you can't fake it anymore because you're never going to
Exactly.
You're Kentucky.
Exactly. You're Kentucky.
Okay.
That's the best way.
I hear you. But man, if they win, we got to give them some serious respect.
Oh, absolutely. If they pull this off, good for Kentucky, man, because you're playing one of the hardest schedules. You just beat the number 6 team in the nation that just blew away Florida, and they've beaten Florida. Their only losses to A&M. I mean, that's pretty good.
I mean, bring on Bama at that point.
Bring on Bama. Hey, we're going to talk about Bama a little bit later, and for the love of God, I'm hoping that's going to be a good game. But the next game I have is actually the next.
Let's keep this in the SEC. I got just because I kind of like when we keep it with the conferences. We did AAC, then we did the ACC. Now we're in the SEC. So I got Missouri visiting Florida, and Missouri's +6, and I like that. I don't think
really. See, I have Florida.
Wow, we got a fight here.
I got 20 on it, man. I'm like ready to go.
Holy crap! Well, I mean, I think Florida is one of these teams, kind of like Kentucky, where it's like they're faking it too. I don't think they're very good at all. I think Missouri is one of those gritty teams that is going to keep the game at least close. So I can see Florida winning this, but Missouri, has been one of those tough outs for a lot of teams. They play in a lot of close games, so I think 6 is a lot. And so, hey, if they can lose by a field goal or 1 point or whatever, 4 points, that's all good.
Yeah, the thing is, I think that Florida's pretending. They got the big win against LSU, and that's what's keeping them up there. That's really their only good win. They lost to Georgia. I know they beat Mississippi State, but Mississippi State is ranked 18 because the mediocre teams in other conferences are playing like crap. And so they need to rank somebody, and Mississippi State's an easy one because they're in the SEC. I wouldn't be surprised if this season ends and Mississippi State's not even ranked. But I just think Missouri themselves aren't that good. And I know that they've hung around. They lost by 2 touchdowns to Georgia. They lost by 1 last week to Kentucky, and they should have beaten Kentucky. That was a home game. This kind of feels like almost what happened with Memphis against UCF, where you have a chance to take down a rival, and then you have to come out and play the next game. And what was it? Missouri got to go and play Memphis and destroyed them. I feel like it's going to be a tough call. You have one team that lost a heartbreaker. You have one team that got blown out. Florida's going to try to prove that they're legit. Missouri doesn't want, like, Missouri's just actually not legit. So I think Florida's going to be able to win this one by a touchdown. But this could be it's an SEC game, so it's probably going to be low scoring. But I do think that Florida
what I mean. Just like 6 points. Like, I don't think Florida is 6 points better than Missouri. And Missouri is 0-4 in the conference. They're going to be they need to get a conference win because they're not that bad to be 0-4 right now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we saw what they can do. Like, their last 3 weeks. Last week was the close Kentucky game, which they should have won. Should have beaten the number 9 team in the country. There you go. The week before was Memphis, who they handled very well. Memphis is a good football team. The week before that, they play Alabama, and they probably looked better. They held Alabama to under 40 points. How about that?
Yeah, that's true.
And then the week before that, they lost to South Carolina by 2 points. Then it was Georgia the week before that, and they only lost by 2 touchdowns. So, Georgia's, we're saying, is a top 5 team. I just think for an 0-4 conference team right now, Missouri is probably worse than people think. So I like this 6 points.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, look, this game's probably going to end 20-14, and then we'll both just get a push and move on with our lives.
All right.
What do you have on it? How much?
I only have 15 on it.
All right. So you want to let's do the Miami game before we get into the biggest game of the week. Let's do that because let's get the Miami game out of the way. Let's talk about this first. Let me tell you about our friends at Sal Astorita and Cox LLC, a boutique law firm focusing on white-collar criminal defense and security matters. They've been featured and recognized in Florida super lawyers as well as Florida Legal Elite and the partners formerly worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office and the SEC, Sal Astorita and Cox, attorneys at law. You visit their website at sallaw.com or call the toll-free number 1-888-SEC-ATTY. Look, I think LSU and Alabama deserves a little bit more respect, so I want to save them for a little bit because that's your game of the week. That could be the game of the season right here. So let's talk about Miami. Playing against Duke, not going to Duke. Playing against Duke. Man, it's been an ugly season for the Canes right now. We're 5-3, 2 losses back-to-back, Boston College and Virginia. 2 teams that aren't very bad, but they're teams that Miami should beat. And last week, nothing looked good. It wasn't just the quarterback situation. It was everything. The defense got opened up those first 2 drives. It was terrible. It was pathetic. They couldn't stop Boston College at all. You could have put 12 people on the defense, and I don't even know if they would have stopped it. It was really bad. And so I'm coming into this game, and Duke is another one. They're going the wrong way. And so for me, I can't touch the spread. I can't touch the spread.
I know. And that's the thing. And it's we know a lot of Canes fans listen to this, and we want to talk about the Canes and give you the insight. This team, like I said last week, and you took them against BC, I said, I don't trust this team. There's nothing that they've done to give me trust, and I don't want to bet against them, especially with Duke, who's looked so bad in recent weeks. But Duke was one of our favorite teams to bet on preseason. So yeah. I know that Duke is capable, and it wouldn't surprise me if Duke comes in and just beats us. That's where I'm at with it. But I want to believe that it's at home. It's a night game. This is an environment that Miami gets up for, and they pull out a win. But, what was it? It was 2 years ago, right? Or is that 3 years ago now?
The crazy play at the end of the game.
Crazy lateral.
Yeah, I think that was 3.
That's That was a team that you would probably think, oh, they should beat Duke easily. They needed that amazing play to beat Duke. So it's not like we've been able to just handle Duke whenever. And I think this Duke team does have some talent. So I worry here. I don't have anything on this game, which is just Miami it's a team you can't trust. If anything, you bet against them at this point. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's probably the play here.
Yeah, it's hard to give them 10 points or 9.5 points when they haven't proven they can score. They can't score anymore. Boston College's defense is not good. Boston College does not have a good defense, and Miami can only put up 14 on them. And I know that there was some turnovers, in Boston College territory, but it was bad. It was ugly. And to put up 13 against Virginia, I know Virginia is pretty good right now, better than we thought, but they looked dead after the bye. They didn't look any better. And this isn't a one position thing. This isn't just the Malik Rozier and N'Kosi Perry thing. This is oh my God, what's going on with this team? Because the defense doesn't look that good either. They really don't. I mean, they looked good against Virginia. We should have won the Virginia game. But they did not look good at all last week against Boston College. They really didn't. So
I think a lot of it has to do with if you're a defensive player and you're giving your heart every game, every play, playing really well for the first part of the season, but your offense can't do anything. The quarterback's having issues. The O-line hasn't looked good. You're on the field a bunch and you're not winning games. Like, that's got to be like, well, screw this. How are you supposed to play at the same level? It's a mental thing, I think. I mean, it's this team's a bit defeated right now. So, I mean, if I were to bet, I would probably lean on taking the 9.5 points for Duke. Miami wins by a touchdown, but that might not even happen at this point. It's worse. It's bad. It's as bad as it's been in a while.
At this point, I just want to win. I don't care how it happens. Just get the win. Get it back on the right track. Look, I keep being overly optimistic, but the season still isn't over. Because if you beat Duke, you have 2 losses in a part of the conference that's going to be won with 2 losses. Virginia, I don't think, is going to win out. Virginia still has to play Virginia Tech in the rivalry game. I think they have to play Georgia Tech, who looks much better now. And this week, they're playing Pittsburgh. I think Virginia is going to lose a game or 2 here because they're overachieving. And I think Virginia Tech, we play them again. We can beat Virginia Tech. And if Virginia Tech beats Virginia, now you're in this crazy 3-way tie scenario. Pittsburgh, we get to play Pittsburgh. We can beat Pittsburgh. This season But this is what I'm saying. We can, because we get to play them, so we can beat them.
Okay.
I'm saying literally we can. I'm not saying I believe. I'm saying we can beat them. We get to play them on the schedule. So this still isn't over. A loss to Duke this week, and Miami football this season is done. Nobody should watch the games. I'm so disappointed I bought the damn Virginia Tech tickets. I'll start selling them for $5 on the street corner,
I think going to a game, it's still a lot of fun.
Oh, dude,
I'm still going to
it'll be fun.
I'm still going to try to go to the Georgia Tech game.
There you go, man. Hey, see, there you go. That's the fun. We'll still go to the game, but here's the way I look at it. If we lose this week to Duke, probably going to be a lot drunker than I would have been had we actually been in contention going into that Virginia Tech game.
I don't know. I feel like either way, that's how you roll when you're at a college football game.
Oh, that's true. Well, I like to pretend I would pay.
Win or lose.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe I'd like to remember that. I won't want to remember the game against Virginia Tech. That's really what the point is, more than anything.
All right.
So we got nothing on this. The over-under's at 51. You got nothing, right? Because there's no way you can predict either of these teams to score.
Exactly. It's so tough. Should we go to one game before we get to the big game?
Well, we skipped over the Big 12, and I only have one Big 12 bet, but we skipped over Texas for West Virginia. And that was the next game I wanted to jump to, just because
Let's go for it.
West Virginia at Texas. West Virginia is 13. Texas is 17. Texas got beat up pretty bad last week. So Texas takes a little bit of a drop in the rankings, and I think that this is kind of what I expected from Texas. They were pretending a little bit. They weren't going to last all that long. This over-under is at 58. I love it. I think this is a great over-under. Both of these teams like to get up and down the field. We've seen both teams put up points. We've seen both teams give up points. Last week, Texas 38-35. They only beat Baylor 23-17, but that's because they were kind of starting to take teams for granted. It looks like Miami at the end of last year beat Oklahoma 48-45. That's a lot of points. West Virginia, that's what they're known for doing. 58-14 against Baylor, 38-22 against Kansas, 42-34 against Texas Tech. They had the loss in there against Iowa State, but Iowa State's a lot better than people think. They got a good defense. And I think that this is going to be a shootout. I think this is going to be fun Big 12 football. 58 points. That's only 8. I know that's 8 touchdowns and a field goal, but I still feel like that's only 8 touchdowns and a field goal. This is kind of how I feel about that Air Force Boise State game last week. These are two teams that want to score and just haven't been really. They've had some games where they can do it, but when what's happened with both teams is when they've lost or they've played down to the competition. That's when the games have been low scoring. But when it's actually both teams can score, and this is a game where one team is going to go up 7-0 or 14-0, and the other one's going to have to answer. And because it's going to be that fast pace, I'm just loving this going over.
Yeah, I thought about it. I also thought about this spread too. It's at Texas is favored by 2 points. They're at home. I'm staying away from it, but I was leaning West Virginia. Do you have anything on the spread? I think West Virginia is a more complete football team. And Texas pulled out the big, flashy Oklahoma win, and they beat USC, but USC isn't all that good. And, they run into an Oklahoma State team who's mediocre, and they got. Where I think West Virginia is they have the loss, but they're more capable to represent the Big 12 and win the Big 12. And I think they know this is a huge game on their schedule and means a lot for them moving forward in their season. So I kind of like West Virginia. I don't have anything on it just because Texas has surprised me this season, and they're a good football team. They weren't going to win. They weren't going to win out since the Maryland loss. That wasn't going to happen. So they drop a close game to Oklahoma State. That's fine. But I am leaning towards West Virginia. If it goes down, which it might, because Texas is at home here, if that's even, then I probably hop on West Virginia.
Yeah, I like West Virginia here. This is a tough one, though. I agree with you because we've underestimated Texas. We underestimated them when they played TCU, which, by the way, TCU lost last week to Kansas. I mean, what the hell?
It's over for TCU. I was trying to defend them that they've had a tough schedule.
Wow.
Saying that last week, but yeah.
Bad. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably lean West Virginia here, but that might just be my bias. Maybe a little bit of bias against Texas because Texas always seems to blow it. Look, Maryland beat Texas week 1 and just fired their coach today. Like, that's crazy. So, I don't know. I figured a loss was coming for Texas, but I don't know. We'll see what happens in this game. This will be a fun one to watch, and I'm excited to just take the over here so I can sit down, watch the game, root for points, and root for a good football game because I think it will be a good football game. I don't think either one of these teams is great.
Yeah, I like that. I think Texas does have a pretty good defense, though. Only thing I worry about there in the over-under, but definitely with the Big 12, if you're getting an over-under that's set under 60, the over is the way to go. I have one Pac-12 game.
I have 2 Pac-12 games.
Keep pushing off Bama LSU.
Let's keep pushing off Bama LSU. And before we jump into the Pac-12, do you want to talk about Big Ten? Do you have anything in the Big Ten? Because I think we should just talk about the Michigan-Penn State game. I don't have anything for it.
I don't have anything on the Big Ten. I mean, this is at the point in the season where nothing makes sense. And I think we're getting a couple, there are a lot of good games last week. We're learning more. But I didn't see really. I had the Ohio State, Nebraska, that under, but I think that's it.
Yeah, I think here's the game that I have, or I don't have anything in this game, but it's Penn State going to Michigan. It's number 14 versus number 5. What I look at here, and I'm not going to do it because Penn State has looked bad the last couple of weeks. They really have. They haven't been themselves. They barely beat Iowa. They barely beat Indiana.
Spread at? Because I did think about taking Penn State here.
It's high. Michigan is minus 10.5, which I think is a lot of points for a Michigan team that is good, but Michigan's number 5 in the nation right now because every other good team has lost, and Michigan's lost.
Their only loss is to it's to Notre Dame.
Exactly. And look, here's Michigan's schedule. They beat Western Michigan. They beat SMU. They beat Nebraska. They beat Northwestern. They beat Maryland. None of those teams are very good. They destroy Wisconsin. Wisconsin isn't good. And they beat Michigan State. Yeah, that's a rivalry game, but Michigan State's ever good. Michigan's the only good team they've played is Notre Dame. Like, that really is the only really good opponent on their schedule. And Penn State's had a much harder schedule, even though they haven't looked good recently. I think 10.5 is a lot, and I think Michigan at number 5. I think Michigan is overranked right now. I would guess by the end of this season, I would not be surprised if Michigan ends up being ranked closer to 18, 19, 20 by the end of this season because they're really not.
I would see them at like 15, 16.
Yeah, I think they're going to drop 1 or 2 games here, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was this week, but 10.5 points is a lot of points.
Yeah, I thought about having on Penn State, but Penn State just hasn't done anything for me lately where I have confidence in them because Michigan has been able to win, and they're flying under the radar a bit because they haven't had any big games, but they have looked good. So I don't know.
Yeah,
this was one I like. I'm with you. Leaning Penn State, I don't like it enough.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's save LSU Bama for last, man. Let's save that one for last.
Do you have anything else in the Big Ten?
I got nothing else in the Big Ten. I got 3 bets left. One is the LSU Bama game, and then I have 2 in the Pac-12. So if you want to jump to the Pac-12, let's do it.
Yeah, let's move to the Pac-12. I only have 1 bet in the Pac-12. It's UCLA going to Oregon. And Oregon looked terrible against Arizona, but this is their bounce back game. Oregon's -10 here. UCLA is not a good football team. Oregon likes to run up the score. I hope it's just one of those high scoring games. I've taken Oregon a couple times, and I think I've hit both of them. I think I'm 2-0 when taking Oregon against the spread. So I think I had them against Cal and then one other time. So I do like this one.
Yeah, I like Oregon -10 as well. I think that they're better. UCLA got blown out by Utah last week. If you're going for a comparison game, Arizona just beat Oregon 44-15, and UCLA beat Arizona 31-30. UCLA beat Cal 37-7. They played better against Washington, who's not even ranked in the first edition of the college football playoff ranking, which I think is hilarious. But I just think Oregon, they had a bad game they beat Washington, then they had a bad game against Washington State and get blown out by Arizona. I think the Arizona game is a letdown game after, Washington State, such a big game. I think that they gave up a little bit against Arizona, and I think they got embarrassed. And I think this is a week where you come out, you're at home, and you say, screw it, let's go out there, let's beat the crap out of this team that we're so much better than. And I think that
and UCLA just isn't getting it done either. So, I mean, but last week I was like, this is a great spot for TCU to get things together after playing Kansas, but that didn't really pan out for me. So, yeah. So,
how much do you have on it? I have 15.
I have 15 as well.
Okay. All right. And then the other one that I have, since you said you don't have another one in the Pac-12, the other one I have is Washington State. So, Washington State, man, they're ranked, number 8, I believe? They're number 8.
It's 9.
It's 8. In the college football playoff, they're number 8, which is crazy. But they're playing Cal, who just isn't good. Cal's not a very good football team. It's at Washington State. We've seen this kind of all season. I know Cal just beat Washington. But Washington, I think everybody overrated Washington. And before that, they beat Oregon State bad. They lost to UCLA by 30 the week before. So I don't think that Cal can hang with Washington State. Washington State pulled off the upset against Stanford, beat Oregon State, beat Utah. Really, if it weren't for that USC game, Washington State's probably ranked number 5 in the country right now. Really. Because they lost by 3 to USC, which kind of looks like a bad loss. But because they've beaten Utah, who's ranked 15, and they've beaten a couple other teams, I like Washington State to blow this Cal team out of the water. I don't think they're going to look past Cal because right now Washington State's not one of those teams that much was expected of. So I don't think that they're going to look past anybody because they know that at any moment, if they slip up, they're done. It's kind of like how Miami was last year when they were kind of playing that mentality of we need to beat everybody so that we can even get into this ranking. And I think that's how Washington State's going to play. So I like them here. They're only -10, and I think that that's a low number against the Cal team that's not very good. So I have 20 on that.
Yeah, I just fear that Washington State's going to slip up at one of these games. Like they're in the national conversation. They've had a lot of big wins. And I don't know. It's like weird. We have like Florida and Kentucky and Washington State like in the top 10, and I don't believe any of them to be top 10 teams. And it's like mediocre football teams lose games they're supposed to win. It happens every season. We get confused. I fear that at some point Washington State is gonna drop one of these games that should be really easy.
Well, it's going to be next week. They go to Colorado. I think that's where they slip up. I think they make it through this one,
Okay.
and I think they can lose to Colorado.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's on the road. They're at home here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Cal's one of those teams where they're kind of like a shit disturber. They just want to mess with you. Like they're never gonna do anything themselves. Like maybe they'll make a bowl, but they're never gonna be like they're never gonna win the Pac-12 or compete for a spot in the playoff. So it's like they'll just somehow win like 3 games against like Washington or Oregon or whatever. So
you're not a Stanford fan, are you?
No. Actually, I got my Giants hat on. I want to give a big shout out to the Dodgers. Congrats to back-to-back World Series appearances.
Yeah.
So that's good for them.
Yeah, exactly. As a Yankee fan living in LA, I was rooting for the Red Sox. I'll go on the record saying that's how much I despise Los Angeles sports fans because they're not real fans. So I'll say that out loud right here. Go Sox. Yeah, I just said that on a podcast, Will. But anyway, yeah, the way you were talking about Cal right there, that was just oozing with Stanford hatred for Cal. They're going to win 1 or 2 games. Maybe they'll make a bowl. They'll never compete. But it's true. They're not very good. I mean, Jared Goff is, running crap in the NFL right now. So I guess that's pretty cool, right? But that's
yeah. But it's like they had Jared Goff, they had Aaron Rodgers,
mm-hmm.
They had Marshawn Lynch. They've had a lot of these like big name players. But when have you ever heard Cal doing anything of importance on the national level?
It's true. It's true. And look, they were a team that knocked off BYU after BYU knocked off Wisconsin. And everybody's like, ooh, here we go. Or no, I guess it was the week before BYU knocked off Wisconsin. That's what it was. But still, then they get blown out by Oregon, lose to Arizona, get blown out by UCLA. I don't care that they beat Oregon State and Washington right now. They were just overrated at the beginning of the season. Washington's the Miami of the West Coast. That's all. All right,
USC is the Miami of the West Coast. They're always back. They're always overrated. Private schools.
I guess maybe it's this season. I mean, look at Washington. Started at number 7 or 10 or something, 8, and Miami was 8. Miami was 8, and then Washington was.
Washington maybe it was like 6, and Auburn was like 3 or something.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous. And Miami ends up. Miami and Washington both aren't ranked and both aren't very good, and But do you have any other bets before we get to LSU?
No, that's it. Bama LSU is the last one I have. So
let's do the last one here. I have a feeling we're going to disagree on this game.
I think so because you keep talking it up as this is going to be the best game of the week, and this is like the game, and I'm like, this is an afterthought to me. This was an easy choice. I don't think it's going to be close. I'm taking Bama minus 14.5.
I have 10 on my bet, and I did do LSU plus 14.5, and here's why. It's because it's at LSU. So because of that,
doesn't matter. Matter.
Here's the thing: Bama is the best team in football. There's no doubt in my mind. Like they're the best team in football. I don't think LSU has a chance to win this game. They're the best team. It's a shame that number 1 versus number 3 isn't going to be competitive because of how good Alabama is this year. But I just think we've seen it in the past. These LSU Alabama games can get weird. They stay too close. The defenses show up. Bama's going to put up points in this game. But I don't know, man. Since LSU's loss to Florida, they beat Georgia so bad. They held Mississippi State to 3 points. I think that this could be a sneaky one. Now, look, I only have 10 on it. I'm praying for the college football landscape that this is a great football game. And it could very well be a blowout. Dude, but I got 10 on it at plus 14.
I want Alabama to lose. I want something to get, let's shake it up. Let's put Clemson up at number 1 and then see what happens. I want Notre Dame to slip up. Let's see all the madness. I just can't see it happening as much as I want to see it. This Bama team, this isn't like when Alabama and LSU were number 1 and 2, and they played like the games that were like 9-6, where there was like 5 field goals kicked. I think that was like 2011, and they had 2 games that were just like 13-7, or these
like the most boring national championship of all time.
This Bama team is not built like a normal Bama team. Like it's got the defense, but they've got like an insane offense, and it's just Bama's never been this good. And I could be wrong, but until we see otherwise, there's no reason to think that LSU is going to be the team that puts up a fight. And I get it. It's in Death Valley. They're at home. But, I mean, LSU is another one of those teams where, yeah, they're good. I don't think they're one of the top 5 teams in the country. So let's see how it shakes out. I really feel good. I got $20 on Bama to cover this. They're gonna blow them out.
Yeah, and I agree with you though. This is the shame of what's happening in college football this year, and this is the shame of why it sucks that Miami sucks so bad. There's so many open doors. Like you were saying before, Washington State is 8, Kentucky is 9, Florida is 11. Why? Michigan is 5, LSU is 3. Syracuse is ranked 19. Utah is 15. Fresno State is ranked.
It's even like Notre Dame, and I get Notre Dame's undefeated, and they have to be ranked that high because they're undefeated. But how confident do you feel that they could even compete with Bama, even keep it close, or Georgia?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's the problem with this season right now. Alabama is that good, and everybody else is mediocre. Everybody. And Clemson is probably the closest, but I still think if Clemson plays Bama, I think Clemson might lose by 3 touchdowns. Really.
It could happen, but certainly Clemson seems to be on a tier of their own where Alabama is this tier 1, Clemson tier 2, and then maybe you put like Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame at like that next
UCF.
tier. Maybe. Yeah, no, put UCF in there.
Yeah.
Like who would win, UCF or Florida or Kentucky? I think UCF has a chance to win both those games.
And that's what's a shame right now is you look at that UCF is ranked 12 and you look at some of the teams ahead of them, and it's teams that aren't that good. Like Kentucky, Washington State, Florida. Those are not.
There's no reason. Yeah.
They should not be ahead of UCF. And what's going to happen this week is one of those teams is going to slip up, but West Virginia is going to knock off Texas, or Penn State is going to knock off Michigan, and both of those teams will jump UCF, and UCF will stay at 12 while Kentucky and Florida or Kentucky, Washington State, and Florida all fall behind them, but other teams jump ahead of them. And it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, as teams start picking up loss number 3, I think that's where you can maybe find some room for UCF to wiggle into the mix. Mm-hmm. But with 2 losses, that seems to be the thing. A Power 5 team with 2 losses is better than an undefeated AAC team. That seems to be kind of the status quo. So, but it wouldn't surprise me for a lot of these 2-loss teams to pick up another L this week. So we'll see.
I agree.
All right. That wraps it up. Pretty quick one. But hey. We'll have and it's fun too when these college football rankings come out and you see their adjustments, because this is the first one. Now we get to see how they adjust it, and there's always a lot to argue and disagree with. So
yeah, so let's man, I'm curious to see what happens this week. This is the first week that it finally matters, and we get these, we get a couple ranked matchups, and I'm hoping for chaos. We need a week of chaos. We haven't had a week.
Hey, I'm hoping LSU can win. Or if they do lose, they lose by like a lot. And that was right.
I agree. I hear.
But I'm rooting for the win. I'm rooting for the win for sure.
Me too.
All right. Follow us on Twitter at Pick'emPod, YouTube at College Football Pick'emPod, iTunes at College Football Pick'emPod, Canes Insight, their iTunes, their SoundCloud, CanesInsight.com, all those places. So, Phil, you got anything else?
No. Well, good luck this week, and we'll see everybody next week.